Mm-mm.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First, we would like to address our distinguished guests, the Ambassador of India to Indonesia, His Excellency Manoj Kumar Bharti. The Acting Director of Health Surveillance and Quarantine at the Ministry of Health, Endang Budi Hastuti. The Minister Counselor for Tourism, Embassy of Malaysia, Junus Suhud. From the Institute for Development of Economics and Finance, or INDEF, Tauhid Ahmad. Epidemiologist Diki Budiman. The former Director of World Health Organization, Southeast Asia, Chandra Yoga Aditama. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's been an honor for us to present you the 41st Diplomatic Forum, presented by Voice of Indonesia, from Indonesia to the world. Today's Diplomatic Forum is live on our YouTube channel, VOI Indonesia, our Facebook fan page, The Voice of Indonesia, and our website, VOINEWS.ID. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, today the Diplomatic Forum will be hosted by Daulat Pane and will discuss a topic, pandemic to endemic, how the world can learn to live side by side with COVID-19. In this Diplomatic Forum talk show, please feel free to join in our conversation by asking your questions directly to our speakers. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'll call the host of today's Diplomatic Forum, Daulat Pane. Daulat Pane is a senior journalist of The Voice of Indonesia, former head section of program and production for American and European services. He has been assigned at Korea Broadcasting Services, or KBS, for 2 times, in 2006 and 2015, and covered various national and international events, both in the country and abroad.
Voice of Indonesia presents Diplomatic Forum, a talk show analyzing strategic issues and global perspective.
From Indonesia to the world.
Well, listeners, ladies and gentlemen, today our Diplomatic Forum is going to discuss a topic on pandemic to endemic, how the world can learn to live
Yang pertama memang mudik kita perbolehkan karena melihat angka-angka kasus harian memang sudah sangat rendah dan kasus aktifnya kan sudah di bawah 20.000, memang rendah. Tetapi apapun ada masa transisi yang kita masih harus hati-hati. Saya tidak ingin kayak negara-negara lain langsung buka masker. Enggak. Ini masih ada transisi kira-kira 6 bulan. Kita lihat seperti apa, baru nanti silahkan kalau di luar ruangan buka masker, kalau di dalam ruangan masih tetap pakai masker. Ada tahapan-tahapan dan kita tidak perlu tergesa-gesa. Karena apapun kita punya pengalaman saat Delta seperti apa, saat Omikron seperti apa. Sehingga kehati-hatian, kewaspadaan itu tetap harus.
This diplomatic forum is brought to you by Voice of Indonesia.
And remind us what to do before Indonesia really determine or announce that we are in a endemic situation. So the first questions will go to Ibu Endang. Ibu Endang, so what can we learn from the plan or the discussion for the transition from pandemic to endemic, including what Pak Joko Widodo already remind us about this? Please, Ibu Endang.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Pak Pane, for the first question regarding this transition from pandemic to endemic. As we know, the nature of the virus cycle, as we know, virus cycle life is that our human body will produce an antibody to recognize and against the virus. Yeah, and three things that we can learn from the past pandemic situation is that the viruses don't completely disappear. Yeah, the descendants of the Spanish flu, for example, and avian flu, still exist up to now. Yeah. But the pathogens can stop spreading because that many people are already have vaccination and also already get infected. The second one is that the virus is mutating and the immune system is learning. Our immune system is learning. The virus mutation become relatively harmless and the human immune system has learned enough to fight the infection. And also humans and viruses reach the immunological detente. Over time, the virus will only trigger small waves and cause milder illness. Yeah, like as we see maybe in this COVID pandemic situation, we can see that compared to Delta, the Omicron variant is have mildest symptom in human. And also we can see the epidemiological pattern here. The virus patterns are known to be predictable. For example, in swine flu, the infection is higher in summer and in the northern part of the earth, and also it is higher in winter. Yeah, and so learning from the last three pandemics, the status of the pandemic can change to endemic for after 1.5 or 2 years. Yeah, if we see the COVID-19 pandemic started at 2020, yeah, now it's 2022. Hopefully, if we see the epidemiological pattern, maybe this year or maybe next year, yeah. If there is no another new variant that have higher infection, more infective than Delta or Omicron, maybe in the year of 2022 or 2023 we can reach endemic, inshallah. And regarding the statement of our President Jokowi, and also what we have in last week, yeah, where we having this Idul Fitri, where we can have the Idul Fitri leave for the whole week, and also for the children at school, they have longer holiday from the school. Actually, this is part of the easing in our implementation of restriction on community activities or PPKM. Yeah, as we know that we still implement this PPKM, but if we see the number of the cases, as mentioned by Pak Jokowi, that right now the additional new case number is maybe around 200 or 300 per day, and also the cases have milder symptoms, so they don't need hospitalization. Also, the decrease of the number of the death, and our vaccination coverage is also high. Yeah, it's more than 70% for the first dose. Regarding this situation, so we can we can ease the restriction. Yeah, we can meet with other people. We can have our mudik and stay longer with our family, but still the health protocol have to be implement. Yeah, we still have to use mask, wear mask, and have a distance. Yeah, distance with other. It still have to be implemented. And after this mudik, yeah, we have to be aware to see the increase, if there is increasing, even little increase of the cases. Okay. Yeah, in that situation, we have to strengthen again the health protocol and tighten up again the restriction of the community activities.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the mechanism of the easing and tighten of the PPKM.
Okay,
Yeah,
Bu Endang, I have some notes for that, but I will have the following questions for that. The endemic could be implemented until 1.5 years after it first infected here in the country. But President Jokowi said that we need about 6 months. Okay, that's the first question, but you can answer it later. And how the government will control the people who just say traveling to their hometown, okay? There should be testing and tracing for them, but later. And thank you, Bu Endang. I will go to Pak Budiman. Pak Budiman, the Indonesian government loosened restrictions here. Okay, we see that millions of people traveling to their hometown, to their kampongs, yeah, and mobility various regions in Indonesia, of course. And what you can say about this?
Okay. Thank you,
in terms of epidemiology.
Thank you, Bang Pane. The releasing restriction is something that we cannot deny and we cannot prevent after we reach the 3rd year of pandemic. As I also advising the region, especially for the media, about the situation in not only in Indonesia but especially in, let's say, in Asian countries, the economic factors, the social factor also contribute to the change of the policy in many countries. And of course then, the country like what we show from Pak Jokowi's statement, we are lucky we have this leader that really based on data, based on scientific when choose the strategy. Because as we've seen in, let's say, when I stay in Australia, the federal government, sometimes they just choose to release or make lose this restriction, but only because of the economic or political factors. Of course, there is political factors also in the behind the reason why this change is, the change of the policy. But the good thing for, let's say, for Indonesia, that the number of cases is now reducing, and also we can also, as Bu Endang already mentioned, the government already strengthened their capacity in terms of response to this pandemic. But of course, then the threat still there, the problem still there, especially because we still not reach the most vulnerable one. If we look at the coverage vaccination, still we have problem with these elderly. We have problem with the many vulnerable population. Of course, this is something that already mentioned also by President, also Bu Endang as the representative of Minister of Health. If we don't, let's say, make a proper mitigation when we do this transition phase, or we do this restriction, the loose of this restriction, then we will have another problem, the wave. I have to remind of all of us that currently the Omicron, of course, we have seen is not really impacted the many, population, especially the countries. But the problem is not because the Omicron is less severe than Delta. The problem is because we have more landscape immunity. We have more modality. But the problem with the current variant, especially the lineage of the Omicron, the trend to evade the immunity is increasing. Now we have seen the new, let's say, subvariant or recombinant variant from Omicron, BA4, BA5. Yeah. And especially we have to be aware about the BA2.12.1, which is the most stronger than before. So the trend is increasing. So it's mean we have to be careful when we do this restriction, to lose this restriction. So that's why in many media I also remind the government that the PPKM or the social large restriction is still needed by Indonesia and of course the region, because this is something that's, let's say, the umbrella strategy which remind us that we're in health emergency status. We are still in pandemic. So if we lift up this restriction totally, I think that's a very, very dangerous for us, because again, Indonesia is huge, has a huge population. We have also, very diverse, and the gaps between the response in Java and out of Java is very different. So again, we can see this as a progress. Of course, we are on track to respond to the pandemic, but it's still a long journey to reach the end of the status of pandemic.
Okay, thank you, Pak Diki. Prof. Chandra, Pak Diki said just now that it is dangerous to leave off this status from pandemic regarding the immunity of the population. What you can say about this?
Thank you. So before answering that, if I may, I want to give two comments regarding our title.
Okay.
The first one, we are talking about transition from pandemic to endemic. We should realize that the terminology of pandemic, pan means everybody or most of the country. So status of pandemic is a global status. It's not a country status. Endemic, in the other hand, could be a national status and could be also a global status. But if one particular country, Indonesia or Malaysia or India, can control their COVID and their situation is under control, and they are already endemic, it does not really mean that the pandemic is over. Because, we have around 200 countries globally. If 5, 10, or 20 countries already control their COVID-19, there are remaining 190 and around 180 which still facing the COVID-19. That's my first kind of input to the title. The second one, we are talking about living side by side with COVID-19. Ibu Endang just mentioned the previous pandemic. The pandemic before COVID-19 was the pandemic H1N1. That pandemic was declared by WHO on June 2009. And it was declared on August 2010, so one year, 2 months, as the post-pandemic period. So there was an experience that pandemic happened 1 year and more, 2 or 3 months. But when the declaration was made that the world is in the post-pandemic period, no more pandemic, the WHO mentioned 3 things. Number one, even though the pandemic H1N1 was no longer with us, but the virus itself will still be with us. That was the statement on 2010. And now, 2022, that virus is still now.
Yes.
So that means if COVID-19 later on will be declared is no longer a pandemic, that means we will still live side by side, as you mentioned here, with COVID-19 virus. Because we have experience. That's the first statement when the WHO said that H1N1 was no longer with us. The second statement they mentioned, which I think will be valid also for COVID, they said that even though pandemic H1N1 is already controlled, in a sense, or they use the terminology, we are now in the post-pandemic period. They are not using control, but the post-pandemic period. So if it is already in the post-pandemic period, there are still questions to be answered. Not all questions can be answered at that time. So I'm assuming that when this COVID pandemic already over, we are still having some questions to be answered. And the third one is the most important part. They said on 2010 that pandemic H1N1 is already under control, but let's be prepared for a future pandemic, something like that. So in this regard, of course, we are already more than 2 years handling this COVID-19 pandemic, and as already mentioned, the situation is more or less under control in many of the countries. But if this is already, taken care of, we have to be ready for the next pandemic. In this regard, when we are talking before the session, that's why the G20 discussion will be important, not only for recover together, recover stronger from this COVID-19, as well as preparation for the quote-unquote coming pandemic.
Yes.
So that's why the issue of what President Jokowi said, the renewed global health architecture is valid. So that is my two comment, but now I forgot your question. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
What was your question?
Live up the pandemic status is very dangerous.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, so number one, as I mentioned earlier, pandemic is a global situation.
Yes.
So the status of pandemic will be declared by WHO because it should cover globally. They will also the one who said pandemic is over, or they will say pandemic is a post-pandemic period, etc. So the status of pandemic is not country by country statement. That's number one. But number two, if you are talking Indonesia in particular, on November or early December last year, number of cases is already like today. It's about 200, 300.
Yes.
Even the number of deaths per day is less than 10.
Yes.
Sometimes less than 5. But then after the Omicron goes up to 6,000, etc. So that means we will need sometimes to be able to say that the situation is really under control. So I fully agree that there should be a transition, say it about 6 months, for things to be stable. In this regard, I would like to raise the publication of WHO, I think 2 months ago, saying that if we want to control, if we want to tackle the emergency situation of COVID-19 this year, there are three possibilities scenario that can be happen. Number one, they said that is a base scenario, standard scenario. In this base scenario, situation more or less will be like this: under control, people will need booster. Vaccine is still work quite well, but maybe a re-booster will be needed. That is the base scenario. The other scenario is the best scenario, the best, BEST. In that regard, there will be new variant, but very less virulent. So we don't need repeat booster. So situation will be really good. But we have to consider the third possible scenario. That is the worst scenario, which we cannot predict. I mean, we do hope the best scenario or the best will be there, but there is still a possibility of the worst scenario, where the new variant will arise, which is more virulent, which is more severe. Of course, we do not hope this will happen. We just hope these two will be there, the base scenario and the best scenario.
Okay, Pak Chandra, the next questions for you later is, which scenario that we have to take? Yeah, as Prof. Chandra said that this is a pandemic, it's a global issue. It is not only one country issue. Yes, let's go to Ambassador Manoj. Yes, a number of regions in India, as we know that, had announced a full relaxation of the COVID-19 health protocols in early April this year. So why were the relaxation in some areas while in other areas still with strict health protocols? So say in some area there has been relaxation, but the other areas, the government still implement strict regulations. Please, Ambassador Manoj.
First of all, I would like to say hello, Selamat Pagi to all our viewers, both present here.
And also our listeners abroad in India. We have many listeners in India.
Everywhere,
yes.
Everywhere. If you allow, I would like to take off my mask for speaking, because it makes the voice a little more clearer. First of all, health is a state subject in India. Means we have two lists of policy making in India. One is made by the center, and the other is made by the states. There are certain subjects on which policies are made by the center, and some others where the policies are made by the provinces or the states. Health, the policies can be made by the state, but pandemic is an issue which is on a concurrent list, where the center can also make policies. From this point of view, the decision on restrictions or the pandemic state is to be taken by both the center as well as the states. When the health protocol were relaxed in April 2022 in India, the decision was taken on different factors, like the ground situation in the state monitoring, the situation, vaccination coverage, the daily infection rate, etc. On the basis of these information, the state government, each province, takes a decision whether to ease the restriction on COVID-19 or not. And I would say that based on their own state or provincial requirements, different provinces put restrictions on a different level.
Yes.
And that is what the position as of now exists in India.
Okay. So this, based on the situation, I mean local situation in it, so there will be strict restrictions while the situation is still in quotation bad. Thank you, Ambassador Manoj. Pak Yunus.
Yes.
As stated by Pak Diki just now, that the impact of these, I mean the policy taken from pandemic to endemic will be on economic sectors, including tourism, of course. So in Malaysia, how this affect the situation, the tourism sector in Malaysia?
Okay, thank you very much. May I open my mask?
Yes,
so that
please, please.
I can speak more freely. I'm like 2 meters away from my from Pak Chandra next to me. I hope I don't violate any health protocol here. Yeah. So, Pak Pane, thank you very much for your question. Firstly, on behalf of the Deputy High Commissioner and the rest of us at the Malaysian Embassy in Jakarta, we'd like to thank you, the organizer of this forum, for inviting us to participate in a talk show like this. And I hope it's not too late for me to wish the Muslim viewers, the Muslim listeners, the Eid Mubarak wishes or Selamat Hari Raya Idul Fitri. Yeah, back there in Malaysia, we say Selamat Hari Raya Aidil Fitri. Okay, the question posted by Pak Pane, how is endemic being seen from the economic point of view in Malaysia? All right, and he zeroed in tourism because I am actually the representative of tourism. That is my forte, but I'll touch a bit on the economy of Malaysia in general because of this new transition from pandemic into endemic. Yes, firstly, I have to say, all of us in Malaysia are very enthusiastic about the reopening of many sectors. We have seen improvement on matters concerning, beside economy, on social health. On social aspect, the transition from pandemic to endemic has given a very positive outcome on the livelihood of many Malaysians. I'd like to quote 2 instances. The recent Eid Mubarak opening for the Malaysians to go back to their hometown as what Indonesia was having. We call that mudik, we call that as balik kampung or the exodus. Yeah, you've got like 40 million vehicles going back to all parts of the country. We've got like 10% of that, 4 million. But 4 million is no small number. Of course, the Malaysian government, we've had the system of certain timing of the vehicles to move around. So economically, as it has contributed significantly to the movement of the people. You know, you can see the retail outlets, you can see entertainment outlets have all been opened. Yeah, and it's a very positive thing. And on the aspect of social, we see that event organizing, has now been opened. Just to let you know, in the state of Sarawak, very soon in the month of June, we'll be having very important events, namely the Rainforest Music Festival and Jazz Festival of Borneo. Now, these events, because they are done outdoor, the SOP are very, very relaxed. So that is one of the elements of endemic when it comes to hosting of events. Now, on health matter, the way I look at it, because Malaysia has already had a lot of the population having the vaccination, first and second first and second vaccination, and more than 70% have had the boosters. Even the small children have got their own vaccination. So, from health point of view, I see that this has given a lesser burden to the government from the aspects of hospitalization. Yeah, less people are required to be treated for COVID-19 diseases at the hospital. So, those who have had long wait lists for other diseases like kidney stones, maybe cancer and all that, can now expect to have their treatment done in a short time. Yeah? Okay, I move on to the economic point of view. So, economically, because Malaysia is relying a lot on manufacturing, so the opening of sectors, sectors of opening from pandemic to endemic has made Malaysia's industry to have their workforce in full operational situation, so we can produce more things. More people are given the task to work, yeah. And from the economic point of view on tourism, yeah, we have seen a lot of positive outcomes from the lifting of the status into endemic. Yeah, as we speak, the airlines servicing both countries, Indonesia and Malaysia, are more operating. Yeah, we've got 14 airports from Indonesia coming to 7 or 8 points of arrival in Malaysia. So maybe more than half have already operated, and we are looking forward to having more. So the travel between the two countries have increased. Yeah, so that gives us a lot of benefit to the stakeholders in tourism. Yeah, beside the airlines themselves, the hoteliers, theme parks, yeah, the tourist guides. So all have been benefited from this. So we look forward to having more of this, and we're really ecstatic about the situation of Malaysia being declared as not really full endemic, but I think it's a pre-endemic, I would say.
Pre-endemic.
So pre-endemic. I think if you look at the reports by WHO, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, yeah, the endemic can only be seen in 2024, right? So we are moving towards that. Yeah, all the nations in the world are moving towards that.
2024.
24, they say. Yeah, but we hope that it will be sooner than that.
Mm-hmm.
But as said earlier by a few speakers, you know, we have to live alongside with this new development. So that's what we are doing in Malaysia, sir.
Okay, thank you, Pak Yunus. So the next question will be, how the Malaysian government will control, later, not now, but just remind me later about these questions. So how the Malaysian government will control the visitors, the tourists? It seems that it's a good news. You are really happy that the number of visitors to Malaysia is increasing. But how the government will control the visitors in terms of health? Yeah, Pak Tauhid, sorry. One, like Pak Yunus said, that it seems that Pak Yunus is very happy with the increasing of the numbers of visitors to Malaysia in terms of ringgit. Okay, because many visitors comes, there will be more spending for the visitors in terms of ringgit. Here in rupiah, it means that in terms of economy, Pak Tauhid, so what the government doing now, or just say before the Eid, the Eid al-Fitr, and now there is a in quotation a policy that to let the people stay, I mean the people who back to their hometown to stay longer in their hometown. So how much, if we put this in a calculation that we can get from these, if we try to compare this about the risk that we face in terms of health. Pak Tauhid.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Yeah, I think the government have a lot of criteria and of course some precaution conditions. So I think one of the this policy I think is good because it's been 2 years we have a pandemic. So people a lot of have money, a lot of saving. So they have to consume a lot of things like
spending
clothes,
their money.
like food and others, a lot of social activity. So the impact, I think, is positive. Yeah. Last year, the total of spending of the money in 2 weeks for the Hari Raya and also Hari Raya in 2 weeks, more or less than 145 or 150 trillion rupiah. Now predict a lot of more than 200 trillion rupiah. I think it's quite big, so the impact for the economy very, very huge. So the first one is they have to consume a lot of things like, I mean, a mall and also food street, tourism, and a lot of people have gain for this social activity. The second one, I think, is more people have to have social assistance from government, then have to more consumption to their necessary consumption. The third one is they have to consumption to other people to give me some social assistance to their kampung or their village. So that's more activity. And the last one is, I think some people has invest on their village or their have money to come to their brother, their villager or their brother, and that's good for the economic activity in the region. So I think it's positive impact. Yes, but the consequence, of course, that's we worry about this activity to health sector or to health protection, because maybe now in some region even the rate of the vaccine has a good condition, but the risk is still exists. So I think the implication for the economy still there is a risk. So last day the government of statistic official has announced that the economic growth 5.01. It's good things that we have. That's good. That good stand to. We have to move to the endemic. Even there is a risk. Okay. Because now even the pandemic today, the risk one we have risk for the increasing of the food price and increasing of the oil price. So the impact to Indonesia is the inflation going rise. So that's the risk of this situation. And other countries have recovery in economic, so they tend to search a lot of natural resources. So that's why the implication to Indonesia are going to raise more high. The second one, yes, in United States now they increase the Fed rate to 25 until 50 basis points. So the risk for Indonesia for this recovery is the rate of Indonesia Bank Center or BI 7 days BI rates going rise. So the implication is to the rate of the saving rate of the credits more rise. So the implication for the economic recovery going maybe get lower. That's I think the second one of risk for the economic recovery. But still in Indonesia, I think because our economic based on the consumption, so I think we have to come back to natural growth is how to push our consumption more higher. So that's why government should support to the lower community with the social assistance, facility of the lower rate of the credit, and then giving job with the infrastructure with the labor mind. So this is the way how to push in the pandemic to endemic in the long term. But yeah, we have to reach another one is we have to more fiscal more deeply. So we have to decrease our debt, and then I think the risk is government have to fulfill this support government expenditure more higher in the long term. So that's important thing.
Okay, Pak Tauhid, I interested in one point about the Fed. While the Fed raise its interest rate,
yeah,
you say that the Indonesian economy could grow,
yeah,
and turn better.
Yes.
But don't you think that while the Fed raise its interest rate, so the investors will move from Indonesia, from domestic to
United States? Yes. Yeah, because yes, when the United States has raised their rates, so all the market on the money, the financial market going to the United States. So the implication is the US dollar comes to the country, and then the implication to Indonesia, the exchange rate will decrease. So we have to pay a lot of money to change our debt in exchange rate in US dollar. So that's why more private or government debt will rise. So that's why that's a bad idea. To increase the financial and to capital inflow back to Indonesia, yeah, we have to have policy to increase our BI rate now at 3.5%. So we have to increase that, so the money will come back, and then the exchange rate will more stronger. Then the stability of macroeconomy will also stronger. That's why it's quite important to fulfill the market of the financial come back to Indonesia. That's why it's important, because the macroeconomic is also important to make investor, not only the market financial market, but also foreign direct investment also in the real sector like the mining, agriculture, industrial, and also tourism sector.
Okay, thank you, Pak Tauhid. As I mentioned before that we have many listeners, including in India, Mr. Ambassadors. Here comes one of our listeners, Radha Krishna Pillai, watching from YouTube, our YouTube. He said that greetings from Kerala, India. The question is, what are the initiatives of Indonesia in connection with the tourism sector in the post-pandemic era? So this question will go to, this is tourism sector, Indonesia tourism sector, but you can answer later with the Malaysian tourism sector. Maybe Bu Endang, but yeah, later after this, okay? Yes.
This diplomatic forum is brought to you by Voice of Indonesia.
From Indonesia to the world.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you are still listening, watching Diplomatic Forum broadcast live from Jakarta, Indonesia. And this is the questions from our listener in Kerala, India, Radha Krishna Pillai. Thank you, Radha Krishna Pillai, for watching our program. The question is, what are the initiatives of Indonesia in connection with tourism sector in the post-pandemic era? Maybe Bu Endang can answer this question.
Thank you. Maybe I put off my. Yes, regarding the question, yeah. At the moment, Indonesia maybe start in last year, mid of 2021, already start to prepare the tourism site in many places in Indonesia, such as in Batam, for example, in Bali, in Lombok, and also other tourism destination in Indonesia. And also, maybe if I can say the test case is Indonesia also held some international event starting at the end of 2021, and in this 2022 will be carry on. And Indonesia also already opened some of the tourism site. Yeah, and also, I think it's also already like if you see Bali, it's already like Bali or Jakarta is already like maybe 1 or 2 years ago. Yeah, already very many tourists come to Yogyakarta or to Bali. Yeah, for the preparation.
Excuse me, Bu Endang, can you make it your mic?
Sorry, yeah.
Yes.
For the preparation, while we are preparing to open the tourism, is that this tourism destination have to ensure that the number of the cases in this area is maintained to below there. Yeah, we monitor. Central level and also the provincial level and district level monitor the data or the number of the cases in this place. Yeah, and when it is already at the level 2 or level 1 of the pandemic situation in this tourism area, then we allow them to open the tourism in those places. Yeah, so the important thing is that they have to maintain the number of the cases in those tourism destination to be at not zero maybe but flat for some times. And it makes the tourists, maybe they will feel safe if they come to those tourism destination in Indonesia. Yeah, it's already, we already open in Batam, in Yogyakarta, in Bali, Lombok, and other places. And maybe with this situation now, Indonesia is at the level 2 of the pandemic situation. We hope we can open another tourism destination in Indonesia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bu Endang, you mentioned that they have to maintain number of cases in their area. Who is they here? The local government or national or central government? Who should maintain the cases? The local government, like in government of Bali, province of Bali, government of province of Batam, or who?
Yeah, they are the tourism destination. Yeah, Bali, Batam, Jogja, but also the what you call it, the nearest, the surrounded area. Yeah, because we know there is no border. Yeah, yes. with the other district, for example, like Yogyakarta, they have border with Central Java, some district in Central Java. So the districts around the districts in Central Java around the Yogyakarta is also have to maintain their low cases in those places, so it won't make the increase cases in Yogyakarta, for example. Yeah.
Thank you, Enda.
Yeah.
Okay, so I remember one thing that we have this diplomatic forum when in Bali at the end of last year, we discussed about bubble traveling. And the local tourism player said that the government say, okay, come to Bali, come to Jogja, come to Batam. Coming here is safe, but no visitors, or say less than 10 or 100 visitors at the time, at the end of last year, around November, if I'm not mistaken. The reason is that the flights operator cannot operate their flights because the number of passengers only say 10, 20, or maybe just less than that. So their operating cost is very high. See? So now, how to ensure that not only the people, I mean the tourists themselves, that this destination is safe for visiting, but also other sectors such as flights. Pak Yunus, you can say that, okay, coming to Kuala Lumpur is safe, whoa. But for people visiting, I mean, from Indonesia to Kuala Lumpur, only 10, while the flights operating cost is very high. So it is impossible. The flight operators will fly these 10 people from Kuala Lumpur to Bali, right? So now, these questions will go to Pak Manoj later, and Pak Yunus, still relating to the questions of these our listeners in India. So what initiatives? Pak Yunus first? Pak Yunus first.
May I try to address the question? Now, when wherever the flights originate and go to the destination, especially in the period of low interest to travel, I always look at it from the point of view of supply and demand. Yeah. So I think when you mentioned about low takers of the flights into Bali from wherever, yeah, in the initial stage, I think if you were to ask me, yeah, the same question, but not Bali, but Langkawi. Yeah,
okay,
Langkawi
say
in
Langkawi.
Malaysia. Yeah,
Yes.
same thing. When we first started it, of course the demand is not that big yet. But we in the National Tourist Office, yeah, Tourism Malaysia, beforehand, months before that, we had to do our promotional exercise. Yeah, we knew that it was going to open on a certain date. So 2 months before that, we worked with the hoteliers by giving some offers. Yeah, and then we worked with the entertainment outlets, and that the airlines themselves would give some special fares. Yeah, and after a while, after a week or two, we saw the number increased. Yeah, so it's the preparation beforehand. Yeah, and number two, I think the issue of the fares. Yeah, it cannot be too expensive. Yeah, the airlines must realize, it's not easy to get people on the flight. As long as they can break even, I think it's good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so these are the 2 points I think would be relevant to answer questions, whether it's to Bali or anywhere else in the world, so that, when it first started, we can see just a few days of low turnout or low load factor on the flight, but after a week or two, then we see improvements. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ambassador Manoj.
Let me take this question also to inform about what happened in the tourism industry, tourism sector in India as part of the effects of pandemic. According to the Tourism Ministry, Indian Tourism Ministry's survey, nearly 21.5 million people had lost their jobs in the tourism sector due to pandemic. And there was a need to do something in terms of policy making at the government level in India. Even the tourist arrival had been very badly hit. From an annual figure of nearly 700,000 in 2019, the figure came down to 182,000 visitors only. So to boost tourism industry, the steps that the government of India took involved granting free visas to 500,000 visitors in 2020 onwards. So 500,000 visitors anywhere in the world who applied for an Indian tourist visa were granted visa free of cost. Similarly, Ministry of Finance in India announced special relief package to support the Indian economy in the tourism sector. Under this scheme, interest-free loan up to 1 million rupees, which comes to about $130,000, was given to the travel and tourism stakeholder, and up to 100,000 rupees, which is about $13,000, to the tourist guides in the tourism industry who were involved. So these were some of the packages that were given to fight and to come to give support to the tourism sector. Now, if you come to this situation of Bali, I have only one comment to make apart from what has already been said, is that when the government of Indonesia was trying to open up tourism to Bali, though there were a lot of incentives given, but even then the restrictive measures to control the pandemic, like you have to stay 3 days in the hotel, first it was 7 days, then it was 3 days in a hotel, you cannot move out of the hotel. Those kind of things were weighing heavily in the minds of people, and they did not want to book any ticket. Once all those restrictions were taken out, I think Indians have already started coming to Bali in huge numbers. There are weddings being planned in Bali. I know about a wedding which is happening tomorrow onwards in Bali. So that is why I am saying that now that the restrictions have been taken care of, a large number of visitors are coming, have started coming to not only Bali, but other tourist places in Indonesia also.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador Manos. So there are many ways, initiatives like free of cost for visa, and also relieve the package, yeah, and also leave up the isolation for the tourist visitors. Okay, yes. Now I'd like to go to Pak Budiman. Pak Budiman, if you still remember, sorry, I just refreshed what Ibu Endang said, that we need about 1.5 years. And that's maybe one point for just say declaring the status from pandemic to endemic. And now we know that people of Indonesia who have been vaccinated still less than 70%. Correct me if I'm mistaken. So it is also a point of consideration to declare this from pandemic to endemic.
Thank you. Before I respond to the question, I want to also adding some explanation, because unofficially I'm the advisor for the Minister Sandiaga Uno for the health recovery of the tourism in Indonesia. I'm unofficially advisor to Minister Sandiaga Uno
for tourism,
for the tourism recovery.
So you can also answer.
So that's why I want to adding some explanation. The reason also why I'm not official, because I don't want to link to the government, because I want to be still become the independent as the academician. So my always recommendation, the point of view is about the security aspect. The ambassador has already mentioned also, and also Pak Yunus, because when we open our tourism aspect, our sector, we have to make sure also that the situation of pandemic or the situation of the within the destination tourism is not getting worse. So that's why since the beginning of pandemic, I always say that we have to start to build, let's say, the bubble travel, so we can then together we can build the security aspect, not from also the origin country, but also in the destination tourism country. So because the situation that the ambassador mentioned will not happen if we can make sure that the travelers is already insecure or in very minimal risk to bring the virus. That's my very fundamental advice to the minister. So that's why now the government started, as Dr. Endang also already mentioned, started to make a relaxation in the criteria by building this landscape immunity, by also put the more requirement about the booster, about the, maybe later on there will be no more tests for PCR tests for the travelers. If we can make sure that we have the similar standard for this immunity aspect. That's for, of course, within the destination tourism, also we accelerate the vaccination coverage to make sure they have enough, barrier if there is some cases or cluster. That's a very short adding explanation about the tourism. And respond to the question from Bang Pane. Of course, there is no strict or no correct formula, or maybe confident formula to say when we can end the pandemic, or when we can really say we are in a very safe. But of course, we already have at least criteria to say when we can make a relaxation, or we can say we already reach or approach the end of pandemic. At least 3 criteria. First, that we already can see the trend of the curve or the behavior of this virus. And let's say, okay, if we have, of course, the big mobilization like Idul Fitri now, we will see whether there will be huge increase with the more modality in immunity or not. If we can pass this situation, that like exam, then we can have more confidence that, of course, we can say, okay, immunity is already working with, of course, with some precaution or what we call it the health protocols. The second one, based on surveillance, we have to see that the COVID-19 as the respiratory disease or infectious disease is not become the majority anymore or not dominant anymore compared to other infectious diseases like respiratory infectious disease like flu or others respiratory disease. This is something that we have to see in near to come. And the last one, of course, then we can say that we are approaching is based on what Bang Pane already mentioned, the modality of immunity, we call it the vaccination coverage. Indonesia now reaching the 70% of total population. Of course, still we have to still deal with the to reach this coverage, the 70%. But at least WHO already mentioned that the world already can say face the acute phase of pandemic if the total population of the world already reached at least 70% from the total population already get second dose of vaccination. And that's still a big challenge for us. So based on those three criteria, of course, many country or some country has different status in regard with these three criteria. So I think Indonesia and also Malaysia, I believe also India, also I think we are in good progress or on track to reach this. But at the total, I mean at the global level, that's still far to reach this, because especially in African region, because the issue in inequity and also the distribution of vaccine is still become a big issue for them. So again, I'm sorry to say, I cannot say exact time, but at least I can say the criteria to answer this question.
Okay, thank you, Pak Diki Budiman. Pak Chandra, Pak Diki said that if there is a huge increase after the 8th, so what we have to do? So, because now we know that the government are still implement 50% for the PPKM, right? So if after the surveillance, after the tracking, testing, and then it shows an increase, so what we should do, Pak Chandra?
Is it okay? Yeah, thank you. But before that, if I may give some comment also about the tourism area. So Ambassador Bharti, I live in New Delhi for 5 years before retiring and then come to here. So I still miss the evening walk in Lodi Garden anyway. So because the question was from Kerala, when I couldn't go there. I missed the boat tourism there. So when I was still in India, my discussion with was about direct flight from New Delhi to Jakarta, which is still not happening as of now. My humble suggestion to you and to my ambassador in Delhi is please provide that so I can visit the old fort again anyway. So
discuss this issue also with the Honorable Minister of Tourism here, and we are also in touch with various airlines to see as to how soon we can start a direct air connectivity between Indonesia and India.
yes, my second issue about this tourism, if I may just add a little bit information, you mentioned about the G20 meeting, where the big G20 meeting will be happening maybe October, November, etc.
November.
But before that one, before the big event, there are already several pre-events happening.
Yes.
In the case of health, because I'm from the health sector, I was involved in the meeting on tuberculosis last 2 or 3 months ago in Jakarta. And now I'm helping Ibu Endang staff for preparing another meeting in Lombok of G20 for One Health.
Please invite us, Pak Chandra.
So I just would like to mention that even before the big event of November, there are several events of G20 happening in various places in Indonesia. So for the Voice of Indonesia viewer, please come and then visit Indonesia in that regard. And regarding the flight that you said is still vacant, is not full, how can people come if the number of people is not full in the plane? I myself will visit my daughter who are graduating in New York this Saturday. And the flight is already full.
Really?
So, I mean, I couldn't get my window seat. I tried to get the window seat yesterday, but I couldn't get. So maybe what I'm trying to say is maybe the situation, globally, the COVID situation is better. Hopefully, this kind of under control situation could be better from time to time. So the tourism industry in Bali, in Jogja, in Malaysia, in Kerala, or Goa could also increase for all of us. That's my suggestion. I mean, my hope for tourism everywhere globally.
Okay.
So regarding your question,
The endemic, yeah.
yeah. As I already told you, the WHO had three scenarios. So the base scenario, the best scenario, and the worst scenario. If the situation is still like this, say something like the base scenario, after this MUDIC, after this relaxation of some restriction, maybe the case will increase.
Yes.
But if the scenario is still the base scenario, we could hope that the increase will not be that significant. We could hope the situation can still be under control for several reasons. One is the reason of that scenario. Second reason, as you mentioned, keep mentioning about the vaccination coverage. By the way, if we are talking about vaccination coverage, we have to see two data basically. One is data published by Bu Endang, by Minister of Health, where the percentage of coverage is divided, is a number of people vaccinated divided by 208 million people, the target. But if you go for the, say it, international, our world and data, where we could compare Indonesian data, Malaysian data, and India data, the denominator is not 208. The denominator is 274 million people. So the percentage is a little bit less. So I know Indonesia now, I just see it today, is a little bit above the world average, but still not yet reached 70%, if the 70% is the goal.
Yes.
So that is the case. But situation is much better, of course. Not only by vaccination, but also by natural immunity. So again, if the base scenario is still there, I think even there are increase optimistically, or inshallah, we could handle the situation better.
Thank you, Pak Chandra. We hope that after 2 years, may not back hometown, and the government give them time to meet their family, the immune of the people after meeting their family is increasing and increasing. We hope so. And it seems that it is not fair if I not give time to the floors to raise their question. Raise your hand and mention your name and organization while you raise question. Please, the microphone over here. Ibu, that table. Please mention your name and your organization. Please.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
My name is Fatia Kertamuda. I'm come from University of Paramadina, Jakarta. Thank you for inviting me in this forum. This is very high-level forum to talking about the pandemic to endemic. The theme is very interesting. So, pandemic to endemic. This is some government leaders may be optimistic to become endemic for the pandemic. However, scientists like epidemiologists still thinking maybe still long way to become the endemic. Is it right, Pak Budiman? Yeah. But however, we still optimistic to become, and then long way to be become side by side with COVID-19. My opinion, impacts of the COVID-19 is only social, economic. We heard that from Pak Taufik earlier, talking about the economic. See from the economics, looking at the global things. However, as a problem, there is some problem not only economic as a global, but also in the household income and the family. We have to thinking about that also. And then in the social impact also, we see about the health status and also social life, and also psychological health. Because I'm I'm teaching in psychology, so that's why sometimes they ignore about how this COVID-19 impact to the psychologist things. So that's why we have to how to deal with the family, especially family with in dealing. There is like a victims, family, their father died and then their mother died, and then in this situation, so that's how they become arrest the economic in the family things. Now, this is very important. So sometimes we don't think in the basic level. We also talking in the global thing. It's okay, is it good things? But also we have to see psychologist well-being in the family. Also quality of life in the family also. So my question is, what is the role of the government to deal with people in the basic, like a family? Sometimes there's not touch, what you call, personally. That's very important. Then also I would like thank you for the all speaker. It's very nice. And then this we have a new, what you call, inspire, and also new knowledge to get information with the this we live side by side with COVID.
Okay.
This is kind of, it's okay, but yeah, we have to, I agree with Professor Chandra, we have to be prepared for the next endemic. We don't know what the pandemic will coming with us after this, we don't know. So that's why we learn 2 years we already deal with this COVID, so we more prepare to facing the pandemic. We don't know what kind of pandemic in the next future.
Okay,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Assalamualaikum.
So the question is, what's the government's role to handle, to treat the people in a very small level, like a family? Goes to Bu Endang?
Yeah, thank you. It's a very good question, actually. Yeah, because yes, you're right. Maybe sometimes we forget about the basic things, and we talk about the global things. Regarding the psychologically matter, yeah, during this COVID pandemic, Ministry of Health already have maybe we call it a module for mental health during this pandemic, this COVID pandemic, which is developed by we have this Directorate of the Mental Health, and this is already being already implemented, but I'm not sure about the coverage. Yeah, is it already implemented in all of the district in Indonesia or only some part? But since it is like national developed by the national level, this module can be used by all of the district level. Yeah, and they can do. They can modify, for example, this module following what the culture or maybe or the situation in each of the district. Yeah, but we already have that, and also there are some volunteers. Yeah, in I think it's in some of the public health center. As far as I know, it's in Jakarta. They also have some kind of hotline for to do the service for the population that need to have consultation regarding this psychological support. Yeah, this hotline, I think, is already there. Some of the public health center in Jakarta already have this hotline center, and they put one of the major regarding this psychological consultation during this COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Bu Endang. Yes, Ambassador Mohanas?
May I add something in answer to this question? Please. Obviously, I will refer to what government measures have been taken in India, but I have already spoken about the tourism sector, where nearly 21.5 million people lost their jobs. The other sector which was badly affected and large number of people became unemployed was construction sector, where people who are in unorganized sector, you know, the people who do the masonry work and other kind of things, those people were very, very badly affected. So important thing is to revive these sectors at the quickest. That is the best way to help so many millions of people together. And one of the policies that the government had is to give incentive to these sectors so that these sectors can be revived quickly. Construction, tourism sector, and similarly the unorganized sector in vendors and other people on the street. Those were taken care of by the government of India.
Yes, thank you, Ambassador Manoj. Yes, Ibu Fatia. I hope what Ibu Endang's already explained can answer your questions. Okay, we have one more questions here, this table. Can I have 2 questions? One only. Oh my God. One only. Who? Okay, please.
Okay, test. I'm going to introduce myself briefly. My name is Laura from University Al-Azhar, Indonesia.
Laura?
Laura. Laura.
Lola.
Laura.
Laura. Okay.
Is my voice clear right now?
Okay.
Okay.
I love your name. Okay.
Now, of course, first of all, I'm really being thankful for this session. It's a really good and informative, educative session I've ever heard all this time after the pandemic, because all this time I only attend the online webinars, which is mostly, it's so sleepy to hear those online webinars for sure. Now, for Mr. Tauhid Ahmad, as someone that really learned about investment, which is, it's really interesting for me personally, I really intrigued by your, I don't know, by your explanations, especially about corporations, about the economy, that we still have a certain hopes for future, even though that this pandemic hitting us so bad, economically speaking. But I noticed that there are so many companies that are being IPO, right? In Indonesia, especially startups companies. Now, what I'm going to ask is it really a good sign for those corporations to sell their stocks in the market? Or is it a sign that those companies is actually giving up and needs other people money? So what I'm going to ask is it really our chance, and really, is it really a good chance for us to invest, or actually it's a red light? Thank you.
Pak Tauhid, you get the point? The last one, is it really a good chance to invest?
Yes.
To invest in a stocks market.
Stocks market,
Okay.
IPO stocks market, especially startup.
Yes, Pak Tauhid.
I have to, maybe for me, I have 2 questions from Bu Fatia. I agree. That's a big picture of macroeconomic. But the domestic, I think we have problem with the household. Yeah. One of the problem now, recovery of the from pandemic to endemic, we have problem with the economic challenge. First is about the poverty. Yeah. Before pandemic, we have 24.78 million people below the poverty. Now rising up to the 26.50 million people. It also 5.71% of the population of Indonesia. It's not going down, but still good from the last year, but still not the still not the same condition before the pandemic. I think, but the progress is very good. But how comes it's how long it is to the situation before the pandemic? I think more than 3 until 5 years. We have to more seriously and to reduce the poverty because household very deep, especially for the small medium enterprise. Why this? So our survey and also more international institution survey that small medium enterprise has deep problem with at least 10% they bankrupt, and so the decrease of the selling more than 80%, a drop of they have debt also, they have to restructure their debt, so more deep, and then at least 3 until 5 years. They also fit with the government debt because we have to increase our debt more than 2,000 trillion rupiah at a lot of money. So have to fulfill we have to pay this debt long term of 10 until 15 years. That's quite deep. Then also with the unemployment also we more than 9 million people still unemployment, so we have problem with that. I agree with you. That's problem. How to increase our investment to labor intensive than technological right now, like infrastructure in village, infrastructure road, infrastructure on tourism, and also a lot of things to have to do with government action plan.
Okay.
Yeah. The second one about I will answer. Yeah. The last one about investment. It's possible now. Now, what we learned about last 2 years when the pandemic going to Indonesia, so the market for the market is going down 6,000 until 5,000, but the now rise up until 7,000 the IHSG. So I think it's maybe it's different with other country with the condition of the market of Indonesia. Why? Because the situation is we have a lot of money. People with level medium with up a lot of money. Usually they have invest on the real sector, but their money come to the market sector. So because the rate is very good, more than 6 until right up. So that's chance to investor to come to Indonesia. That's the good chance. The second one, we have our government have bond market with the rate about 6 until 7. That's one why the investor come to Indonesia, because the rate is very high in the Asian. I think it's very high. That's why they come to Indonesia, because in the instability of macroeconomic, Indonesia offer a good chance to invest with of course with SBN or other markets. So that's different thing with the real sector, with the market on the financial markets.
Okay, thank you, Pak Tauhid. And Laura, if you have more and specific questions, you can come in person to Pak Tauhid. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Pak Tauhid. And before we close and before we end this forum, I would like all the speakers to have their closing statement. We start from Pak Yunus.
Thank you so much. Now, every one of us is very excited to be in the endemic phase. Yeah, but in our eagerness to revitalize our economy, to make the livelihood more meaningful, so we, I think, must adhere to all the SOPs given by the government. We must put things in balance so that the endemic stays endemic.
Yes.
We don't want any more outbreak. Yeah, we suffered a lot already, yeah, and be mindful of all the SOPs given by the government. So I thank you very much.
Thank you,
yeah,
Pak Yunus.
Pak Pane, for giving us the opportunity to be present at this forum.
Thank you, Pak Yunus.
Assalamualaikum, and hope we see again.
Thank you, Pak Yunus. Pak Chandra?
Thank you. I have 3 short comments. Number 1, regarding the people. In a global public health, we know we are talking about global, but the essence of, if we are talking about disease, we are not talking about only number of disease in this particular country, but we have to go patient-centered. If we are talking about public health, we are not talking about the status of health of that particular country, but we are talking about people-centered. So that's in line with what was mentioned earlier. That's my first question, my first final remark. My second final remark, I mentioned that there was a pandemic of H1N1 on 2009. So at that time, I was appointed as the review committee member of WHO. And my committee recommendation on 2011 was the world was ill prepared for pandemic H1N1. That was 2011. And on the 2021, we have pandemic of COVID, and there was another review committee. And after 10 years, the recommendation from the committee said the world was not prepared. So what I'm trying to say, in the 10 years' time, we are not learning much. Of course, nobody will hope there will be another pandemic. But if there is another pandemic 10 years from now, I do not really hope that the review committee will again say, we are still not prepared. That is my second. So please be prepared. And my last comment, my last message to all of you, since here, me, Bu Endang, and Pak Diki are the health person, and others are ambassador and diplomat and economists, etc. But maybe we can say, as a health person, that based on this, in our experience, impact of pandemic to politics, to economy, to tourism, so the statement is really valid, that health is not everything, but without health, everything is nothing. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Pak Chandra. Next, Bu Endang.
I just like to remind that COVID-19 is still here, is still there, and please be responsible to yourself and also to others. Please still put on your mask. Thank you.
Thank you, Bu Endang. Yes, Ambassador Manos.
For my last comment, I like to go back to your heading, pandemic to endemic. And the words pandemic, epidemic, or endemic describe the prevalence of a disease over a geographical area, not its intensity or severity. That is the definition. And as more and more people gain immunity against the virus, either through recovery from an infection or through vaccination, the hold of the virus over those people in a region will reduce. As far as India is concerned, the Center of Advanced Research in Virology at Indian Council for Medical Research has said that the time when COVID-19 will become an endemic in India cannot be predicted but only speculated. The time when COVID-19 will remain endemic stage in India will depend on the number of susceptible people in the population, vaccination rates, and emergence of new variants that are able to evade the immune response. And I believe this is a yardstick which will be valid anywhere in the world, including Indonesia. So my suggestion would be that we live with this pandemic now that 70% of the population is inoculated, vaccinated. As long as we take normal precaution of our social engagement, we should treat this pandemic now as another variation of flu, because lesser number of people are dying because of this rather than any other ailment. So let us live our life in a normal way, being careful and remaining conscious to the fact that this virus is around us. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Ambassador Manos. Yes, next, Pak Diki.
My three closing statement are first, pandemic is global problem, global health problem, and global health security problem. It demands global collaboration. That's why this forum, I appreciate RRI to invite many countries, because we need global cooperation, global collaboration to solve this global problem. The second statement is that we have to learn from the current pandemic and also the previous pandemic to prepare the next pandemic or the next health threat. Without taking some lesson learned, so we will see the similar problem, and we already seen how big the cause. Of course, some of these changes should be the lesson learned should be change our behavior more about doing the healthy lifestyle. The last one, we have to say that it is impossible to eradicate the COVID-19, because from the epidemiological perspective, they already not only has a host, human as a host, but also in animal. So that's the basic problem. So living with COVID, it doesn't mean we give up to COVID. We give up to deal with the, let's say, some of prevention or doing some prevention. But living with COVID, it means we control the COVID, and we do the best that we can do to collaborate with other countries and also to do the like maybe 5M or also some other prevention. That's my statement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Diki. Last one, Pak Tauhid.
Thank you. Because we are in the flowing country, so I think pandemic to endemic, we have to balance between health and also with economic sector, because the consequence and the risk and the cost is very huge based on the last 2 years our experience. So the priority is still health sector, but it has to balance with the priority program with the economic sector also. So I think the key is we have to survive in this moment is how to still support with the economic program until gradually until the pandemic to endemic end. So we cannot lose, and we cannot just the economic stop. So let it go. Let time decide. No, we cannot do that. So the economic will also accompany with the health sector. It's very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Tauhid. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of our diplomatic forum for today. Theme: pandemic to endemic, how the world can learn to live side by side with COVID-19. There are some points that we already learned from our great speakers for today, and please give a very big applause to our speakers. Thank you, Pak Tauhid, Pak Diki, Ambassador Manos, Ibu Endang, Pak Chandra, and also Pak Yunus. And also another big applause for the guests on the floor. And don't forget our technician team. I'm Daulat Pane. See you in the next diplomatic forum. I hope Pak Yunus, Pak Chandra, Ibu Endang, Ambassador Manos, and also Pak Diki, Pak Tauhid, we can meet again next time in our diplomatic forum. I'm Daulat Pane. Thank you very much.
You've just listened to Diplomatic Forum organized by Voice of Indonesia.
From Indonesia to the world.
Thank you very much, Daulat Pane, and also all our speakers for the interesting dialogue. And now we have come